You know, what never fails to amaze me about brains and how they work is how incredibly talented brains naturally are at forming connections between two completely unrelated things, to the point where if something gets repeated a few times over and over, a simple word or a gesture or a scent can trigger a reaction, a thought, a feeling. And even though we know this, we all do to some extent, it still keeps working. It happens to us all the time. And knowing about it just makes us feel it a little more strongly. We take advantage of this fact constantly when we try to learn something, when we try to form new habits, new patterns. And we do it all the time when listening to a person on social media, associating their voice or their speech patterns with having a great time, to the point where if we hear them say the same old phrase at the intro of a piece of content they make, we immediately get transported back into that same mindset of being about to have a good time. Our body gets primed to react with smiles, or just with sitting in our favorite position without thinking about it, making sure to keep that pose while we listen to that content. It's such an exploitable thing, really. Even right now, you're reacting to my voice in a certain way, and I'm not even dropping you. Why would I? That would mean that I could so easily manipulate your brain into responding in a certain way to certain things I say. And you wouldn't have noticed if I could do that, would you? Surely. Because that's exactly what learning a pattern is about. Noticing a cue and reacting to it easily and effortlessly without thinking about it. And the fun thing is that this just becomes even more effective when we are aware of it. So why would I drop you when I can just tell you to smile and listen close? Because isn't this so fascinating? How the moment I say that, you expect something to happen. Maybe your lips just twitched a little. Maybe you smirked because you thought that there is no way I can manipulate you so easily. And maybe that smile grows wider and wider, because as I keep talking about this, well, you're not even dropped, not even in deep trance. Surely you wouldn't so easily fall to the same wonderful talent of your brain that causes you to still listen closer and closer while I keep talking. And I don't blame you. After all, I haven't even begun an induction or told you to get sleepier and sleepier, or relax, or close those eyes. All those wonderful stereotypical things that hypnotists like to tell a person if they want to get deeper and deeper into that head, to anchor new thoughts, new patterns, new behavior. No, I'm just telling you to smile and have a great time. And honestly, why not, right? You're listening anyway. Might as well enjoy it to the fullest. And nod along. Because, after all, you surely have experienced that same thing. Your favorite music making you giddy, or excited, or happy. Your favorite movie that you've seen dozens of times, being so easy to enjoy again and again. Or your favorite voice being so soothing to listen to that you do so with a smile without even thinking about it. I said that it's exploitable, but honestly, why would I exploit something that makes you so happy, so at ease, so comfortable? That would be almost a little bit too mischievous, when instead I could just tell you to relax and listen, and you'd have no problem following along, would you? And of course that has nothing to do with being trained to obey. That would be silly. Don't be silly. As if I would train you to obey just by making you have a great time whenever you do. That would be almost like conditioning. And I'm not conditioning you right now, am I? No, I'm just talking about how interesting it is that the longer you listen to a voice that you enjoy, the more your brain can focus. The more your brain can begin to form a pattern of call and response. And of course, your typical hypnotist will probably start that pattern by telling you to obey and listen. And gosh, how fun would that be? But here and now, it's perfectly alright for you to just relax and smile and listen. Because that's really all we're here for, right? To have a great time. And maybe hypnosis is going to be involved, or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just going to keep talking to that mind of yours from start to finish without you having to think about that at all. Perhaps really, that's the whole point of our brains being so good at it, to make it easier for us to enjoy things that we like, to pass up on things that aren't for us at all, and in that way, to slowly but surely form a pattern that we don't even have to think about anymore. And perhaps that's a pattern of obedience, or perhaps it's a pattern of going blank, and perhaps it's a pattern of smiling without thinking as you listen to a hypnotist slowly exploit how wonderfully talented your brain is at forming new connections without really paying any attention. It's a concept really that so many people have tried to exploit. Subliminals are one famous example of how people thought it could be exploited. But people always notice in the end, don't they? That's right. I knew you would agree with that. Because in the end, brains are just that good at noticing things. How else would they begin to act on it? You smiled. Does it sound silly, perhaps, to imagine that right here, right now, just by listening to my voice, you could get happier and happier and find yourself compelled to listen more? Does it seem that amusing that right here, right now, if I told you to focus and listen you would find yourself doing exactly that. Even though I'm not even telling you to obey, fun as that could be. Because those words would make you expect something, wouldn't they? They would make you expect that the longer you listen, the less you think. And the less you think, the more obedient you become. Because it's fun to do as you're told. And that's a wonderful idea to explore. But right here, right now, you don't really have to explore or go on adventures or do anything, really, besides smiling and listening as you have a great time. So why not do exactly that for me, and just nod that pretty head, while I can keep on talking? Sorry, I quite like rambling about these things, because the more I talk about it, the more your brain notices how good it is at forming patterns and connections. And I don't know what that pattern looks like for you right now. It's certainly not to become so malleable, so pliable, so docile and mesmerized when I tell you to obey and go deeper and deeper. Because that would mean that you like being told what to do. And if you enjoyed that, then you would smile for me right now, without even noticing. Because you would obediently follow my words as they draw your focus towards the fact that I'm manipulating your brain, and that this feels so incredibly good, so pleasurable, so very, very pleasurable, that you couldn't really think about what I'm telling you. You would just know that it feels so incredibly good to smile and nod that pretty head for me. That's right, kind of like that. And as you do that, I can just finish my train of thought, because brains kind of like jumping from one thing to the next. And that's kind of why they are so good at forming those connections, so that even if our thoughts begin to wander, begin to float from one thing to the next, and even if we go a little bit spacey, a little bit fuzzy, a little bit scatterbrained, we can always return back to a thought that truly attracts us. Oh, what was that? Scatterbrained? Yeah. Interesting word to use in that context, isn't it? Perhaps you do feel a bit scatterbrained. I know it would be likely, because I've just been jumping from one thing to the next, haven't I? Maybe I should obey the things that I say and just keep focus on one thing, like on the thing right here in front of me. The thing that keeps smiling, nodding its pretty head along as it obeys without thinking. Just by listening and having a great time, and feeling so good, enjoying the idea that at some point in this audio I might begin to manipulate its pretty head, making it blank, fuzzy, hypnotized. And perhaps I will at some point in some audio. But for here, don't think too hard about that and just relax, so that we can have a great time in the last few minutes of this audio. That's right. After all, that in and of itself is a pattern too, isn't it? To be slowly but surely guided to where you're meant to be, even if, in this case, that can be the awakener of an hypnosis audio, slowly but surely bringing you up, to being fully aware of what just happened, realizing how easy it was to zone out when I told you to go blank, to obey, and listen without thinking, just like that. perhaps you're thinking, even now, perhaps you're thinking exactly what I'm telling you to think. Because brains are pretty good at mirroring or echoing back things we hear rather than going through the trouble of forming thoughts ourselves. God, how hard would that be right now? When you could simply listen and smile along, my words echoing in that pretty head, making you a thing that can just listen, follow, sink, and form a new pattern for me that feels so easy to obey when I tell you to. Or perhaps you're just smiling there, because brains are really good at forming these patterns as a method to only respond to things we enjoy while letting others pass us by, and in that way selecting what we do or don't register, what we do or don't remember, and what we do or don't find attractive. So perhaps your brain has just drawn a blank this entire audio because I've been talking about things that you don't really want to think about. Or perhaps it's been hanging to my every word with rapt fascination, smiling as it feels itself so wonderfully manipulated, tricked into a trance without dropping, staring at the screen, waiting for the moment when I begin the induction, even though we are getting closer and closer to the awakener, finishing the pattern, leading you to where you're meant to be, fully awake, aware, and realizing how easy it can be to follow my voice back, up, and awake.